Well, welcome back to Bumper Radio. I am Dave Riccio, here along with Matt Allen, and we are here to help you with your car. I'm still smiling because I had not heard that commercial from GoodWorks. That was funny. It made my hair stand up on my arm. I thought it was a little, but yeah.
That was a good one. One of the best ones.
Well, one of the things we're talking about anxiety and three types of repairs. We've got the event-driven repair with the tow truck. We've got the preventative repairs where something's about to break. And then we've got preventative maintenance. And I thought it was a good comparison to say you went to the doctor yesterday because your stomach hurt, but what was the first thing they did? They put you on the scale. They took your blood pressure. They took your temperature. Did they give you the list?
You don't want to know everything they did to me. Well, yeah, I go in because my stomach, I've got something going on. I got a little gut issue. I've got a big gut issue.
Yeah, don't minimize.
But the point is, I went to the doctor, and you know what? They tell me all the stuff I don't want to hear. I didn't want to hear I'm overweight by 15 pounds. I don't want to hear my blood pressure is higher than it was when I was in 6 months ago. I don't want to hear about my cholesterol, although they didn't check it. But she said, you were close last time, and now, you packed on a couple pounds. I guess that diet didn't work out so well.
Short-lived.
But I don't want to hear it. But I need to know. And it's the same thing with your car. We get beat up. Gosh, I just came in for an oil change, and now I need brakes and blah. No, you don't need brakes because you came in for an oil change. You need brakes because they're worn out. You've used them up. Or whatever it may be, the brakes, the belts. Now all of a sudden you've got $700 or $800 worth of maintenance on your car, or repairs that need to be done. Maybe they don't need to be done right now. Maybe they should be done. People don't want to hear that, so then they get uncomfortable with their technician or with their shop, and they think there's more to it than that. You're just trying to upsell me and blah, whatever. But it's like the doctor, I take it as our responsibility to you, our customer.
Well, that's where we want to make you comfortable enough to ask questions, because people are intimidated by asking questions. They don't like asking questions. I got to ask questions of this guy. I don't know half of what I'm talking about. Well, we help you be in the know. That's number one. And then make you feel comfortable to ask questions. And is this urgent? I had a customer in the other day, Marnie, and she came in. She was really anxious because she thought she was going to spend $3,000 on a transmission. It turned out to be a transducer, small piece on her transmission. It was a $300 repair. There was some other things she needed. She had a couple of broken motor mounts that were going on, and a CV boot on a drive shaft that was going bad. And I said, these are some other things going on. And she asked a good question. She said, if I was your mother, and I'm assuming you like your mother, what would you have me do?
My first response was, could you make me peanut butter and jelly, please?
What's wrong with you? But she asked a good question, and then that changed my mindset, and then we had a good conversation. I said, well, this is what we got to have today. This is what I'm going to recommend to you. And then this stuff, if you're going to keep the car for another 3 years, absolutely, let's do it today.
Well, and a lot of people don't know anything about cars. Not anything, or they only know price. So they say, and that's their objection, but they don't really know why. So we want you to be able to say, please explain this to me. You should not be shy as a consumer of, please, could you tell me how this works? What are the pros and the cons? Why should I do this now, or why shouldn't I? You don't need to be confrontational. Is this a guess or a fix or something stupid like that?
Yeah, confrontation doesn't win anybody over.
Yeah.
These are just people that want to treat you right.
Yeah, and we don't want to wait for symptoms. If you wait for a symptom, you have a problem.
There's your event-driven tow truck situation. Yeah. And do you have cars break down, your regular customers that do regular maintenance with you? It cuts that in half or better.
We had a customer that had a battery the other day, and our paperwork didn't have the phone number and all the battery information. She said, I need to know the warranty. And so I went over it with her on the telephone, and she said, well, where do I call if I break down? I said, Diane, most of our customers don't break down. We're always checking your battery. We were being very proactive. She said, Matt, I've been coming here 16 years. I've never used a tow truck.
Yeah, there's
something to be said about that.
Yeah, for sure.
We didn't even plan that.
Well, we've got an ever-so-patient Mike in Mesa. He looks like he's buying a turbo or thinking about buying a turbo. How can we help you, Mike?
I had a Volkswagen Beetle in Seattle with the turbo, and I sold it when I moved to Arizona because the turbo was only warranted 24 months. What do you guys think of turbos in this environment?
Not a big deal. The turbo doesn't know any better, good or bad. I'm not quite sure what your concerns were with the turbo, but I would say I mean, just about every Volkswagen has is a turbocharged engine. But the thing with turbos, and you're pretty much going to see, we're going to be like Europe in some degrees.
More
in the
and more
automobile.
turbos are coming down the pipe.
Smaller engines, lower compression, turbochargers, and turbocharged diesels. The most important thing with the turbo is having just good oil. They get really hot. And if you have a Volkswagen or an Audi, and probably most of the turbocharged cars now are requiring a synthetic oil. You just need to be very diligent about your oil. Dave, what do you think?
Well, I mean, you look at the new F-150. I mean, it's got a couple of turbos on it. Twin turbos, right? Smaller V6 engine, and the thing, it runs like a scolded dog. And they're able to milk more out of the engine with turbos. So, the technology is getting better and better as time goes on. And you brought up the maintenance and the oil change factor. I've seen that kind of go full circle. It was every 3 months, 3,000 miles, and then it went to, BMW says 18,000 miles on an oil change, which I completely disagree with. I think that's just bad.
It's horrible.
Bad advice. But you're seeing some of these newer cars are back to a 3,000. The factory is saying 3,000-mile oil change. You pointed one out to me just the other day.
Well, it's interesting. We talked about direct injection the other day and carbon problems. So I had a regular customer. She brought a new Kia 2012, and I was thinking, gosh, it's her first oil change. I think we're going to talk with her about just doing 5,000-mile oil changes. So I opened the book and look, and it wants an oil change every 3,750 miles. But what I noticed I've never seen before, you have to use injector cleaner or engine carbon cleaner every 3,750 miles on that car.
Let's go to an ever-patient Andre in Phoenix on a 2004 Volvo. Go ahead, Andre. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi, guys. So my issue is when I start the car, normally I turn everything off when I turn off the car, but last couple of times I've left the air conditioner on, and I start the car up, and it's high rev, and then I hear a really big clunk. Now, that only happens if I turn on the air conditioner while it's in high rev. Once it settles down and then I turn on the air conditioner, I don't have any problems. Should I be worried about this? Should I be taking it in? Just looking for your advice.
One of the things, when the air conditioner is on, the idle may be different. It may be in a high idle situation. And anytime you're in high idle, when you do go from park to reverse or park to drive, it is going to engage harder. A lot of times people come in for a transmission complaint because they say it's shifting hard when I pull it into gear, and we look at it and it's just an idle problem.
Well, and I didn't see it that way. The first thing that you mentioned was that you've been leaving the air conditioner on, and we hear that. Should I turn my air conditioner on, or should I turn it off when I'm getting in or out of the car before I start it? And you don't need to. I mean, once you shut the car off, just shut everything off. Because when you go to don't shut everything off, there's no need to. Just turn the key off and exit. When you go to start the car makers know they need full power, battery power to the starter. So they're going to bypass the ignition switch. Everything else drops off. So I don't know that you need to be terribly concerned, although this is a new noise. So Tanner Motors is at 7th Street, just north of Camelback, 7th Street in Coulter in Phoenix. That is the Volvo place to go. We have another Volvo specialist in
Mesa Autoworks.
Autoworks. But if you're in the central Phoenix area, or even if you're not, either one of those two shops is worth a drive. And maybe the best thing to do is just schedule your next oil service with them. Say, by the way, take a look at this. Let me know.
Right.
And I would say if it gets noisier or starts to change, you need to ramp up your I don't want to say anxiety, but you need to get it on your schedule sooner than later. But if it's been pretty consistent, just get it in and have them take a look at it. And it may be something like a low AC charge. It may be a bearing fail. It may be nothing. Maybe it's a new noise. But if it's new, it's got to be something.
Well, thanks for the call, Andre. Let's go with Tim in Sun City on a 2011 Cadillac. Go ahead, Tim. You were on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
That was. Guys, I have an odd thing that I'm looking at. I like to check my oil first thing before I start the engine. So I did that several times on this particular vehicle, and I always find that when I pull the dipstick, it's always way high up. The oil level is always way high up on the stick. I clean it off, put it back down in, and look at it again, and it's still high. I'm assuming there's oil left in the tube when I pull it up the first time. and it's difficult to get a concise reading.
Jim, it can be at times. Those are sometimes difficult to get a read on transmission dipsticks and engine oil dipsticks. But you said that you were checking the car before you start the oil. And we need to really be checking our fluids, and our engine oil or transmission fluid, with the car warmed up. So you need to start that car up, let it run for 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, get it warmed up, let it sit for another minute possibly, and then check the dipstick. The first time out, you're just going to maybe take a peek, look at it, but that's not going to get you your true level. Put it back in, let it sit for 10 seconds, whatever, pull it out. A lot of times it's bad on one side. You'll see that it's got oil all the way down one side of the dipstick, but then on the other side, it's pretty true. So just check it on a warm engine, and you're rolling in a 2011 Caddy. I don't think you really need to be checking the oil too often. Probably a good old habit to have, though, but certainly wouldn't be terribly concerned about it all the time.
For sure. Well, thanks for the call, Tim. Let's go to Beatrice in Tempe on a 1992 Buick Park Avenue. Go ahead, Beatrice. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi. Hey, I was just calling to see maybe who you might recommend to. I have a low oil pressure on the car, and I recently had it tested, and it showed, of course, low oil pressure. But we dumped out like a quart of oil, and I put that Lucas in there, and it's better now. But looks like maybe I'll have to have the engine replaced, because they said they could tell maybe like the front bearings had been replaced.
Okay.
When they dumped
how many miles are in this car, Beatrice?
Well, 65,000, maybe 67,000, and it looks like the original miles.
Right.
Because I only just inherited the car recently.
In what part of Tempe are you in?
Priest and Baseline.
Okay. Well, a couple things. That's pretty low miles for having an engine failure. So what you're going to want to do when you go to the shop is tell them, obviously, what you told us. And what they're going to do, they're not going to rely on the gauge on your dash for the oil pressure. They're going to actually want to do a mechanical test, put a gauge into the engine block, and verify that against the specifications.
And if it's physically low on oil pressure, you're going to get a low-end knock. I mean, if it's real low, you're going to get a knocking. But more times than not, it's just a pressure sensor that's causing the issue.
Very well could be no problem. So Bumper to Bumper Radio, to answer your first question, is can we recommend somebody? Absolutely.
Yeah, Good Works.
Arizona Imports. There's Good Works right on the border of Tempe Mesa. Greg at ATS is a great shop in South Tempe, Chandler Boulevard and I-10 a little bit east. So there's at least 3 fantastic people that own fantastic shops in Tempe area that are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Well, thanks for the call, Beatrice. Let's go with...
I think we're going to go with... I don't know. Should we go with We're going to go with Roger. Roger in Phoenix. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio. What can we do for you?
Hey, guys. I just wanted to call and say congratulations on your 1-year anniversary today.
Well, thank you very much.
You guys have, for the loyal listener, you guys are very informative. Dave, I was one of those guys that would bring my car in on the Friday before the road trip, and you had made that reference that, a couple of months ago you said that, so we brought our car in about 2 weeks to one of your shops in Tempe, and we needed brakes, and so I was able to, change my budget around and still go on the trip.
Well, thanks for calling in. We appreciate that, and I'm glad that you didn't have to have brakes on your vacation, but we appreciate all the...
Afternoon, Smog Patrol. Had your emissions checked?
No, sir.
Fluorocarbons, ozone?
No, sir.
That was supposed to be
It's
this
time
one.
for Fact or Fiction.
Like I said, we're not broadcasters. We're just mechanics.
Couple of idiots in here. You love to push those fact or fiction buttons, Dave.
All those jiggly lines on the screen mean something. Our fact or fiction for the day, and this one, everyone pay attention because I get this question quite a bit. My car is shaking at 70 miles per hour. I need alignment. Fact or fiction, Matt? I know it's your first day on the job. Let's see how you do.
Well, that's the most common thing we get, or not the most common, but one of the very common.
Top 5.
Top 5 of a symptom when someone comes in. To answer your question, fiction. 99.9999% of the time it's fiction. Alignments typically don't cause a wobble. Most people come and say, I need an alignment. Okay, what can you tell me what's happening, or why do you think you need an alignment? Oh, the car's pulling.
No.
Or shaking, duh. I can't even
Right.
think.
I'm going to send you back to the doctor.
It's the medication.
Well, it's tire balance is one of the first things we're looking at. A shake. It's 70 miles per hour, and tire balance at that speed is funny. It may be there at 70, but it may go away at 72 miles an hour.
Or it comes in at 43, and then all of a sudden it smooths out at 47,
it's
weird.
gone. So that's going to be tire balance, which is different than alignment. And on a tire balance, what they're doing is there's inconsistencies in the tire as well as in the wheel, and when they match those two up, they balance it out. So if you're heavier on one side, they're going to add weight to the other side of the wheel. And the best way I can make you picture it is if you look at your ceiling fan at home, and if you just picture unscrewing one of the blades and taking it off and turn that ceiling fan on and see what it does, it'll shake itself off the roof because it's now out of balance. So it has to be perfectly weighted all the way around, especially when it's spinning fast.
And the thing that you can do to save yourself a little bit of time and money, before you go to the shop and you think you need an alignment, get your tire pressures checked or check them yourself. I don't know how many times we have people that want an alignment, get it all set up on the rack, or we go for a test drive and we confirm that it's pulling to the left, and the left front tire is 12, 13 pounds lower than the right. Well, it's going to want to go left. Get that tire pressure adjusted, boom.
Well, you bring up a good point
shape.
about tire pressure, though. That left front tire is low. They don't just go low on their own. So more than likely, hey, we may have a slow leak or something like that. So you're going to want to go get to a tire shop. I mean, fill it up in the meantime, but get that tire taken off and dunked so they can see if there's any bubbles coming out of it. Because tires don't go low just because they go low. There's something happening.
And if they do go low because they just go low, I'll disagree with you a little bit, Dave. I think we can still fight some. Cold weather, we see it all the time. Tire pressure monitoring lights come on, but all four
of them would come down.
Low. There's just not one rogue tire that's like, man, it was cold last night. I'm going to let some air out.
Let's go with John. It looks like on a 2000 Escort. Go ahead, John. You are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, I have a 2000 Escort. Now, I was driving it down the road, and all of a sudden, all my gauges and everything went out. My AC, my lights, my gauges, my radio went off, and then I managed to limp it and get it home. I turned it off, tried to start it again. It wouldn't start. It just cranked. But then a couple days later, I went out to check it again, and I plugged in my OBD2 scanner and plugged it in, and the battery was dead. So I hooked up a battery charger to it, and this little computer box that's right under the air cleaner started going crazy and everything. And so instead I just disconnected everything, charged the battery up, and tried to start it. After I charged the battery up, I plugged it in and went back and checked my OBD scanner, and everything was working.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think this is probably going to be fairly easy for you. It sounds like you have a code reader or some sort of scanner, which probably is not going to be a useful tool on this problem, because I would be willing to bet almost anything that what we have here, the air conditioning, the gauges, the tach, the radio, all that, there's one common denominator. And I bet that when you open the hood, take a look at the battery cables, you're going to find some corrosion maybe on the positive cable. Follow the ground wires, make sure that they're clean and tight, both at the battery, at the frame or the unibody, if you will, and then where it goes down and connects at the transmission. The little box that you're hearing click underneath the fan shroud area there.
Relay.
Well, there's a different name for it, but they used to call it an integrated control module. That's the control center. Instead of having a big relay or fuse box with 7 or 8 different relays in it, it's all solid state components built into a small box, maybe the size of a sandwich. And it's tripping out. It's freaking out because it probably doesn't have the right power and ground, and that's also why it's intermittent. So take a good look at your battery cables and connections at that little relay box. And if that doesn't do it for you, bumpertobumperradio.com. You're going to find any one of those shops on there can take care of that.
Well, thanks for the call, John. That sounds like a smoking gun to me. Let's go with Marty on a Jeep Patriot. Go ahead, Marty. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hello. I have my Patriot. I went up north, and right before Stoneman's Lake, my whole dashboard lit up, and I limped into Flagstaff. And they said my transmission overheated because it's a CV something transmission.
Dave and I.
We just had one of these not too long ago, like 2 weeks ago. We're finding on these Jeeps or on these Calibers or these CVT transmissions, a lot of times when they start to have issues, it's going to be driving up north where you're really getting after it, and the transmission actually will overheat, and we're seeing that more and more. There's not much of that transmission where you can go in and rebuild it. I mean, it's a situation where if the transmission starts overheating, you can try some things, but there's not much you can do there. And more than likely, probably what it did is it went into a limp or a fail-safe mode, which is only going to give you limited operation. From there, when you went into the shop, there was more than likely a code for transmission over temperature.
Well, and Dave, this is just like a flashback because I think it was about a month ago I had a similar problem. We had a couple that was driving from San Antonio to Vegas, and they stopped here. They limped, drove like 40 miles an hour all the way from Wilcox or something. Every time they would go take any highway speed, the transmission would overheat. They would shut it off, wait a minute, let everything reboot, reset itself, and you're right. There's nothing to fix, and there's several new updates. If you look at the part number, Dodge part numbers end with they have a suffix AB, AC. This thing was like FX. There's 10 improvements on this transmission. So, if unfortunately you have to get that transmission replaced, make sure you have the latest and greatest transmission. Because if my recollection is right, the newer one was less expensive than the ones that were sitting on the shelf.
Yeah, and that was kind of strange. So anyway, thanks for the call, Marty. Let's go with Derek in Phoenix quickly on an 06 Nissan Murano. Go ahead, Derek. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, guys. I got a Nissan Murano my wife drives. Lately, from a stop at a light, when she accelerates or when you accelerate the car, it doesn't have its full power, but then after 20 or 30 feet, you can feel it kick up, and it accelerates appropriately. So I'm wondering what you might think that might be.
Is there any warning lights on the dash, check engine lights, or anything like that?
There are no warning lights showing, no.
Okay. Dave, you're pregnant with thought, as you would say.
I don't know if I'm pregnant with thought. I'm wondering if it's, something going on, it's 20, 30 feet with no power, then all of a sudden it takes off.
I hate to say it, that 06 Murano CVT transmission,
I'm not sold on the CVTs, and that brings up a good conversation. I mean, we're seeing more and more problems with them the longer they've been out. Nissan was kind of first to get there, but I hate to deal bad news over the radio, but that's what I'm thinking.
That's what I'm thinking too. And a CVT transmission is constant variable transmission. Okay, so CVT, and it's like your 10-speed or your 21-speed bike. You're going to change the gear in the front or the gear in the rear to have your pedal RPMs change. So there's a cone and it's moving.
That's exactly it. You surprise me sometimes. But yeah, there's a cone on both ends, and it's just varying in and out each cone, and there's a chain in the middle. And it's a little bit different than the bike because the bike pulls from the front. This actually pushes from the back. It's just a weird.
Don't pick on me, Dave. Not feeling well. But yeah, so that cone is just changing, and it's not changing a gear, but it's varying the size of the front gear and the rear gear. And so the odd thing about that, you never feel this car shift. We have a Nissan Cube, and it's just weird to drive, personally.
And some of them you can actually shift gears. It kind of gives you a synthesized gear shifting, but it is not happening. In the CVTs, where they become popular, is fuel efficiency. Mm-hmm. It keeps the motor in the same range where the motor's happy and the most efficient. And that's the idea behind it. As well as it's smooth. I don't like driving CVTs. They just feel weird to me. I feel like I should feel a little clicking of the gears going off.
Derek, again, you're in Phoenix. A lot of shops. Bumpertobumperradio.com if you don't have a shop that you work with. And if you do, stick with them. Go see them. Tell them what's happening. And
hey, Derek, and one thing I forgot to mention, there is a lot of problems with the Muranos, and Nissan is really stepping up. So it may be out of the factory warranty, but I think there was some sort of class action lawsuit where they're covering that transmission up to 110,000 miles and then maybe a little bit beyond. So
call the dealer, be prepared, have your VIN number, and call the Nissan dealer. Tell them you're having transmission problems. You want to know if there's any extension of coverage, and here's my VIN number and mileage.
Well, thanks for sharing 1 year with us. He is Matt Allen, and I am Dave Riccio. Remember never to text and drive. Thanks, Peter, for putting on a great show.
Don't forget those car seats and the kids.